Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel and the part 2 of our Jenny Luan image. Let's pop in and have a look. So we're going to be colouring up the clothes and the wings and the hair on the male in the image, so the dragon man in there. So we're going to start off with doing the clothes first, so I'm going to use some greens through that. I've also popped up the details on the screen as well as I go. So hopefully you guys enjoy this session and we will have a finished product soon. So I've got 4 videos in total. The next one's going to be the longest one because that will just involve doing the mermaid, and then the following after that is going to be about 25 minutes. So we've sort of got a good mix of times there for you to have a go at this. Remember that this video is taken in 2 times speed, I think I've got it at. So don't expect yourself to be able to colour that fast while following along, because obviously I'm not here either. So I'm coming in first of all with the cobalt green. So we're going to use some of the same techniques that we've used on the skin. So we're starting with all of the shadow areas first, and then we're going to slowly blend this out to our highlight colour. So I'm coming around all of the areas where things are leaning or shadowing across the clothes, so behind these ropes here, and also on the collar, and where the wings actually overlapping the body there as well. I'm going to put a bit of a shadow there. I've also put a little bit of a crease shadow in there as well, and I'm putting in some shadows underneath the pec muscles and things like that, just to show some I guess some features and character in that as well. I'm also doing this at really light pressure, so remember that we've got a couple of layers to do over it to be able to get the look that we're looking for, and we want it nice and smooth as well. So just doing really light pressure now, and then the next layer will come back in and we'll darken it up a little bit. So now that I've done that, I'm going to swap over and use some Hooker's green, and I'm going to do exactly the same thing. So I'm coming over the top of the previous colour, still with very light pressure, and I'm just sort of bringing this a little bit further out, closer towards the wider sections that I've left there. So just coming lightly over the top, and we're going to cover most of the area with this one now. We've still got our highlight colour, so we want to make sure we still leave some white there for that. So now I'm going to bring some chrome oxide green fiery in, and I'm going to cover up most of the area now. So I'm coming over the top of the previous colour and bringing this all the way over the white section as well. So you can see some of the white sections aren't completely filled in, but that's okay because we're going to come in with a white pencil and we're going to sort of smooth and smudge that out. We're also going to do a second layer of colour as well, so we'll have plenty of time to do that. So I've just gone in with this colour and just darkened up a little bit of the shadow areas there, but I'll come back in with that deep cobalt green to do those in a moment. So I've got that deep cobalt green, and I'm just coming in now and I'm going to put a lot more pressure on the shadow areas. So you can see that color's really quite dark now, and I'm actually trying to put a little bit more pressure on there so that we can have some nice deep shadows, and we can get some brighter highlights from that as well. So just keeping my pencil nice and sharp too. I just thought I'd mention that because I can have more control of the tip. If you are doing a larger area with light pressure, it's easy to use the side of the pencil, so it doesn't quite matter as much how sharp it is, but I quite like to have it sharp, and I use sort of the edge of the pencil there, or the end of the pencil there, to create those deeper shadow areas. So I'm just going to come in and do a little bit more of this with that firmer pressure, and I am releasing that pressure a little bit further out so that the next color will come over that nicely as well. So we're going to come back in now with that Hooker's Green, which is the next lightest green, and I'm going to go over the top of the previous colour and extend it a little bit further out. So now that in those shadow areas, we should pretty much have a flattened tooth. So it should look smooth and there should be no white showing through it by now. Some of the other areas you will still have to fill in with some more colour, but most of those really deep, sharper shadow areas will now be covered over with pencil. I'm also doing the same thing, making sure that I lift the pencil up and release that pressure as I come further in towards the white section. So you can actually see that there, that as I'm coming in closer to the white, it's filling in the colour, but it's not covering that paper completely as I lift that pressure up. So I've got the chrome oxide green fiery now, and I'm coming in over the top of the previous color, and as I said, I'm extending this further out. I'm still going to leave a little bit of white for the very highlight section, which I'll blend in with some white pencil, but for now I'm just coming in most of the darker areas and making sure that all of that tooth has been flattened off as much as I can, and then still leaving that highlighted color area. So for that area, I've got the white Caran d'Ache Luminance pencil, and I'm just coming in and going over the top of the shadow areas. You can see it's kind of smudging that pigment in and making it look smooth and creamy. So that's what I'm trying to do here. I still want to try and keep some of that shadow color or the depth in there. If you do go over that too much, you can come back in over the top of the Luminance pencil, and you can put the Polychromos over the top of it. It does work to an extent, so don't worry too much if you think that it's too light. You can come back in with those darker colors and just deepen those shadows up again. So I'm going to do exactly that. I'm going to come in and deepen up these shadow areas. So I've got the deep cobalt green again, and I'm just going in, and you can see how this is still going over the top of that white. Because it's so creamy and smooth, it does sort of allow you to put extra layers onto it, because the polychromos are nice and oily and smooth. They don't sort of grip up or pull up that white off the paper. So some of the areas I find a little bit difficult, depends on how much other colors underneath it and things like that as well, but most of the time you'll find that you can put another layer onto it. So I'm going to move on and do the belt. So I'm doing the belt and the bangles on the hand. I'm going to do them blue. So I'm going to start with ultramarine. I'm just sharpening up my pencils there to get them ready. I'm going to go in with the ultramarine, and do a part of the shadow section. I've only got two colors here. I'm using white as my highlight color. So I'm using ultramarine here for the darkest color, which I'll do, as you can see, on the edges there where I want those shadows to look. And what we're just trying to do here is just create a little bit of a 3D effect through that. So I've got my light phthalo blue, and I'm just coming over the top of that. Now you can see that I've left some white areas for those highlights, and I'm just going to come in now with the white, and I'm just going to smudge that color through. Just sharpening up my pencils a little bit there, and also I've cut off the camera a little bit so you can't see that in a moment I actually start colouring the rest of the belt there. So I'm just filling in and leaving some white for the white area so I can put that white Luminance pencil back over the top. So you can see there in the belt, I've gone over the top of the previous colour and just put a little bit of colour over those highlighted sections. I'm coming in with that white Luminance pencil now and just smudging the colour out and making sure I have the nice highlighted section. So you can see there with the dust that was coming off there, that's from the Luminance pencil, and it does create a bit of dust, but it does cover over those colours really well. So we're going to start on the hair now. So I've got 4 different yellows to go through it. I'm going to use the dark cadmium yellow for the hair. I'm going to use that for the shadow areas. So I'm going to go in and fill out those first. So to do the shadow areas, I'm just looking at the individual parts of hair, and wherever hair overlaps other hair, I'm going to put this in as the shadow color. So you can see there against the face, there's a shadow there because his face is there, so there's going to cause a cast shadow on that, and also around the horns and just on individual parts of hair. Some are overlapping others. So I'm just going in and marking out all of these sections first. So because we're using yellow and the colours really do blend together quite well, I've done that shadow area quite deep. I'm coming back over the top of that with cadmium yellow now, just going a little bit further down and coming up from the bottom of each of those sections as well. And I'm just sort of lining that in. You're not going to be able to see the lines because the yellow is so light, but I was quite happy with the effect at the end. So you could put in a little bit of a darker orange in to do the shadow areas if you wanted, but I wanted his head to be more yellow and golden, so I haven't added that in. I've got light chrome yellow now, and I'm going over the top of the rest of that there, just kind of, I guess, lining it in. I'm not really sort of blending those colors together, I'm sort of doing lines through there to create a little bit of texture. You can't really see that here on the video, but you can on the original image, and it just gives the illusion and the effect of having sort of texture through there. So I'm going to use a Luminance white, and I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm just going to put little streaks through in the highlighted areas just to brighten those up a little bit. So I'm going to do the wings now. I'm starting on these little scaly parts first. So all I'm doing is lining a shadow underneath each of those lines. So where they overlap the next scale, I'm just putting a line underneath that. So you can see that it's creating a bit of a cast shadow from one scale to the next. Now when it goes down a little bit further, I really just put the color in the thinner areas just straight down the middle of it, because you can't see those tiny little details. In the end, you'll just be able to sort of see the color differences as we add more color onto it. Make sure your pencil's nice and sharp here so you can get in there and do some nice lines, and you can sort of put a little bit more pressure on, because we're not going to do multiple layers over the top of it. So we're just going to do one sort of layer through the next few colors, so you can do this firmly if you'd like as well. I kind of did it firmer and then release the pressure when I was a little bit further down into the scales. Just going to do the rope on his top as well, this color. Just finishing off the ones lower down here as well. And as you can see, I just sort of spread a little bit of color through those bottom sections where it's so thin. I'm using the violet now, and I'm just coming in and just bringing that color out a little bit further. I'm going to use a complementary color through this just to help sort of lift it up, and the complementary color will be in the highlight section. So I'm going to use a yellow to go through that, and it just helps to, it looks really nice together, and it just helps to sort of bring out those highlight little parts a bit more. So I've got crimson here, and I'm just coming in and I'm doing it roughly now over in the middle of the sections, and just sort of filling in some of those scales there so that there's hardly any white there now. So we'll come back in with the yellow in a moment and fill that out. So I'm using that mauve again now. I'm going to create the illusion that the wings are sort of curved out, so they're curving, the actual spine parts are curving in towards him, and the wing parts are just sort of curving out a bit. So to do that, we're going to do dark on the edges of each of these sections. So I'm just going in quite firm. I'm not going to do too much with layer wise in this, so it is quite firm to start with. I'm just coming in and filling out the edge parts. I'm making sure I leave the section in the middle there for the highlight to go all the way up through, but I'm coming sort of down a little bit each color I do, so that we're creating, I guess, a little bit of a half circle at the bottom of the wing there. So I'm going to use violet next. I'm going to go over the top of the previous color and bring this a little bit further out. As I said, I am putting firm pressure into those shadow areas already, because I'm not going to do the multiple layering, and it is a little bit quicker than doing the other sort of 2 layers quite in depth. This is quite a larger area, so I was quite happy having sort of the illusion and the texture of the pencil lines and things as well, so you can see me do that in a moment as well. So you can see with the top of the wings there, I'm trying to bring that a little bit further down, because I don't want highlight all the way up the wings. I only really want them on the tips there. So I've just done this one side. I'm coming back in now with crimson, and I'm filling most of the areas in, and this is quite firm pressure. So you can see I've just left a little white tip there, which I'm going to come in with that Luminance pencil and blend that out. Now, remembering with the Luminance, it does change the color, so if I was to do it over the whole thing, it's going to make it really light, so I would then want to come back in with those deeper colors and re-deepen that up a bit. So I'm just sort of trying to get these bottom half moon sort of sections just to give them a little bit more light, I guess, and to make them stand out a little bit more. So now I'm going to do the other side exactly the same, so I'll let you guys follow along with that one. So I'm going to lay this white down, but you'll be able to see in a moment I'm going to use some crisscrossing motions, and so crossing over one way and coming back on the other way, just to show that texture, as I said, just to give those lines through it. It looked really nice, and it sort of helps to blend all that color through. So you can see how I do that now. I'm just doing one direction and then coming back on the other direction, so to create that illusion and the texture through there. So this one here I'm doing a little bit lighter. So you can see that's changed the color now and it's a lot lighter than it was. And all I'm doing is diagonal strokes through that just to create that texture. So I'm going to grab some light magenta and I'm just going to fill out the ropes there. So I've already done the outline or the shadow color, so I'm just filling that in now. So I'm going to use a little bit of this light magenta as well in the wings here, just going up, and I'm just putting a light layer over the whole area. So as I was doing this is when I decided that I wanted to use a complementary color in there to help brighten it up a little bit. So I've got that light chrome yellow, and I'm going to come over the top of all of that and just sort of put that in, and what will happen is it will fill out the white spaces still left, and those parts will stand out and you'll have a multicolored sort of effect there. So you can see that there, you can still see the purple through it, but you've got that nice yellow highlight. So we're going to do the little crystals on his head, and there's also some on the ends of his wings as well. I'm going to use deep cobalt green on one side. I don't particularly mind which side you choose. I've just gone in and done it on either, and I've done a little bit on where it's connected to the hair or the wing and things like that as well. So I'm using chrome oxide green to go over the top of that again, and then I'm going to actually mix a blue in there to do the opposite side. So you can see there I've covered up most of the area. I'm going to bring that ultramarine blue through. I've actually got light ultramarine, just going in and just filling out the rest of that space there. I'm actually putting firm pressure on and mixing this colour through with the greens. So we've mixed those colours together now and you can't tell that they're separate. I'm going to come in with the white later on and put a few specks of white through there to show the shine on them as well. So I've just got the white luminance pencil here and I'm just going over the top just to smudge that in nicely. As I said, I will come back in over the top of that with the white later on. Now I'm using the Prismacolor Colorless blender here just to remove some of the pigment because it was quite thick, and it just sort of blended it in a little bit smoother. So you can use a colorless blender, just remember it does take off pigment. So I'll show you in later on, actually, I think it's in the next video, where I actually use it as an eraser. So I accidentally went over the skin a little bit on the mermaid, and then I use this to erase that color off the skin. It works really well for things like that. So I decided that the Prismacolor pencil was taking off too much pigment and I wanted to actually leave the pigment on. I just wanted it smoother and I wanted to get rid of the tooth. So you could do two things. You could use a blending stick, but you're going to smudge those colors together as well. I've chosen to use a Caran d'Ache blending stick. It sort of leaves like a filter over the top of the color and it stops it from smudging actually. So you can use that over the top of Prismacolors, and it kind of makes it nice and smooth and shiny. So you can see most of the pictures smooth, and you can see the texture there in the wings that I've done there. So guys, that's the second video done. So we'll pop back in and we'll have a look at the third one where we're going to finish off that mermaid. Thanks guys.